ahead and get started today, and I'm going to ask Madam Clerk, please call roll, and I'll call the meeting to order.
Mr. Jim Bernard.
Here.
Mr. Jeff Elshoff.
Here.
Mr. Jeff Hawes.
Here.
Ms. Betty Martine.
Here.
Mr. Justin Smith.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Thank you. To begin tonight's meeting, I'm going to ask that Father Terry Hedrick come forward to offer the prayer for tonight's meeting. He's from the Church of the Resurrection, and this is something we do to open up all of our meetings with prayer. Appreciate you being here, Father.
Mm-hmm. Let's pray together. Almighty God and Father, we come to you in the name of your Son, our Savior Jesus, giving you thanks for your presence here now by your Holy Spirit. As we gather, we give you thanks that you are a good and gracious God, abounding in steadfast love and mercy. We pray for the President, for the Senate, for the House of Representatives, for all the leaders of the nations, and for all in authority. Pray for our state government, and then we also pray specifically for the city of Bel Aire, especially for Mayor David Austin and the City Council and all the leaders of this community. We pray that you will reveal to them the knowledge of your will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding, in order that they may be fruitful in their service on your behalf. Anoint them with the spirit of wisdom and charity and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being and common good of all people in this community. Now we ask all these things in the strong and wonderful name of our Savior Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you, Heavenly Father, and the Holy Spirit, our advocate and guide, the one that abides among us, to witness to you, the triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father. Now please rise and join us in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance, the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It started. I know it doesn't feel like it outside, but here we are in March, so I want to welcome everybody to the regularly scheduled meeting of your Bel Aire City Council. Tonight's agenda, we have 3 different proclamations that I'm going to read here in just a few minutes. We're going to have some discussion about a survey. This is the survey that we talked about at the public forum on Tuesday regarding the Woodlawn expansion, and I'd just like to say I really appreciate everybody being here at that meeting. I certainly think that was probably one of the most important things we could have done as we start this process, and I'm glad that we had such a great turnout at that for that. We're going to look at a contract to buy some equipment that is needed, and we also have some appointments to some of our volunteer committees. So that's what our agenda looks like this evening. Then immediately following our regularly scheduled City Council meeting, we'll have our land bank meeting. For that, the first thing to come before the council this evening is the consent agenda, which has 5 different items in it, which is a rarity. Of course, we have our minutes from the February 19th council meeting. We also have a permit request to sell fireworks. We want to look at June 21st through the 23rd as our citywide garage sale days. And then we also are looking at 2 different days, April 6th and October 5th, as community curbside cleanup days. And then the final item in the consent agenda, item E, is scheduling May 4th as a recycling / shredding day. So that is a full consent agenda before council this evening.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
On the setting of the garage sale, the 21st through the 23rd is Friday through Sunday, and we've never held it on Sunday before. It's always been Friday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I wondered if we could change it to the 20th through the 22nd.
I see no problem with that.
Yes, that was it was just a mistake on the scheduling for the consent agenda, and Ms. Martine's correct, it's always Thursday through Saturday, so we just mistook the day. So I would recommend that council make that change, 20th through the 22nd.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I motion to approve the consent agenda as amended and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, any other questions or comments? And again, the amendment is changing the garage sale days to June 20th through the 22nd. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we have three different proclamations that are before us this evening. I'll ask first of all, is there anyone in the audience here representing the American Red Cross, Severe Weather Awareness Week, or Flood Awareness Week? Okay, seeing that, I'm going to read the proclamations from the bench. First one is Flood Awareness Week, March 11th through the 15th. Whereas Flood Awareness Week is an opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of preparing for and understanding flooding in Kansas, and to encourage all citizens to better prepare their homes, businesses, and communities for the upcoming flood season. Whereas spring and summer flooding in 2013, 15, and 16 saw 5 flood deaths occur in Kansas and widespread flooding across the state. Whereas the Kansas Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies flooding as the costliest type of natural disaster in Kansas in terms of lives lost, injury, and property damage. And whereas flood threatens people's homes and other property in every county in Kansas. And whereas floods can happen anytime, anywhere, and without warning. And whereas damage from a flood is not normally covered under a standard homeowner's insurance policy. And whereas this spring will bring seasonal rainfall, which can bring the potential for flooding. Whereas the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration National Weather Service will initiate Severe Weather Awareness Week on March 11th. Therefore, I, David Austin, Mayor, do hereby proclaim March 11th through 15th as Flood Awareness Week in Bel Aire. Pass that to Kurt. And in that same vein here, Severe Weather Awareness Week. Whereas Severe Weather Awareness Week is March 4th through 8th, and whereas Kansas has experienced more federally declared disasters in recent years than any other state in the nation. Beg your pardon. And whereas each year brings the potential for violent weather to Kansas, and whereas large portions of our state, including the city of Bel Aire, can be devastated by flooding, tornadoes, hail, windstorms, and other potentially dangerous events. And whereas the Governor's Division of Emergency Management, the National Weather Service, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, have joined together urging all citizens to prepare for severe weather and to educate themselves on safety strategies. And whereas Governor Laura Kelly has declared the week of March 4th through 8th Severe Weather Awareness Week here in Kansas. Therefore, in official recognition of this statewide event, I, David Austin, Mayor of the City of Bel Aire, do hereby proclaim March 4th through 8th, 2019, Severe Weather Awareness Week in Bel Aire. So that, we'll pass that down too. Final one is from the American Red Cross. Whereas March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our heroes, those who volunteer, take life-saving courses, or provide financial donations to support an organization whose mission is to help those in need. And whereas we would like to remember those who help all of us here in Bel Aire, Kansas, by giving their time to help their neighbor, and thank our heroes, our volunteer, class takers, and financial supporters who help us assist those in need. And whereas in the city of Bel Aire, the American Red Cross works tirelessly through its employees and thousands of volunteers to help when disaster strikes, when someone needs life-saving blood or the comfort of a helping hand. It provides 24-hour support to members of the military, veterans, and their families. And it also provides training in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. And whereas across the country, the American Red Cross responds to nearly 70,000 disasters a year, and provides some 400,000 services to military members, veterans, and civilians. collects and distributes about 40% of the nation's blood supply, and trains more than 7 million people in first aid, water safety, and other life-saving skills every year. Whereas our community depends on the American Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. Despite these challenging economic times, the American Red Cross continues to offer help and comfort those in need. Now, therefore, I, David Austin, Mayor of the City of Bel Aire, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim March 2019 as American Red Cross Month. Let me add something here. Pass that down. All righty. Next, we're going to move on to item 8, which is discussion and approval of appropriations ordinance 19-05. The amount this time totals $438,695.48. And for those of you who are wondering, $5,000 can buy you 42 tons of sand or salt, actually, for the saw that in the appropriations ordinance with the snow and ice. I'm glad that we had that. We do have a couple of other high dollar items in there just to point out. $150,000 went to Donlinger. That was for the villas at Prestwick. And we had $120,000 that is part of our debt service payment to CCUA for the, I guess not to the CCUA, but for the sewer and water there. So that's in our appropriations ordinance this evening.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the appropriations ordinance 1905.
Second.
First and second, do we have any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I have no city requested appearances this evening. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address council this evening on an agenda item under citizens' concerns? Seeing none, we'll move to reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just start out by thanking the Public Works. This crazy weather has kept them awfully busy, and they've done a fantastic job, so thank you very much. I guess the only thing I have is the KDOT has finished the
The 254, the moral
report.
Yeah.
Thank you. Goodness.
Sorry.
Sorry. It's been a long day. Has finished a report on K254. We are going to ask for that full report with the open records so that we can get presentations, and we are currently finding a time to set up another meeting for the K254 Corridor Association so that we can discuss the findings and move forward from there. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, in light of being American Red Cross Month, Church of the Resurrection on Woodlawn is having a blood drive this Saturday. And so if anybody is at a position they can give blood, there's an opportunity. So thank you, Mayor.
Do we know what time that is on?
9 o'clock. I think it runs 9 to 3.
9 to 3, Church of Resurrection here on Woodlawn?
On Woodlawn, not on 37.
All right. Perfect. Okay.
9 to 3.
That's good to know. Perfect timing with the proclamation as well. Councilmember Martin?
No report, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I also have no report.
Councilmember Elsoff?
Mr. Mayor, I have a brief report. The CCUA met February 28th. And again, the CCUA is the Chisholm Creek Utility Authority. That is the entity that manages our water delivery and sewer treatment. And we just had a few agenda items this month that just covered a replacement of a variable speed drive in one of our wells and a pair of drive heads at the wastewater treatment, or for the wastewater treatment facility. And then we also had updates to our emergency water supply plan and our municipal water conservation plan, which are documents published through the CCUA with contingency plans for natural disasters and all the things that can go wrong with our water supply and sewer treatments. That's that's my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate it. I have no formal report this evening, but we want to point out at the CCUA meeting on Thursday, I do appreciate the fact that both of our alternates that serve here from Bel Aire, Councilmember Martin and David Floyd, both attended, and I really am proud of the fact that our volunteer, even our alternates, still attend those meetings to stay up to date on what's going on with the CCUA, because lots of stuff is happening there. I'll echo Councilmember Hawes's thanks to our Public Works for taking care of all these roads and being available. It seems like all the snow falls, nice Saturday nights. It can't happen 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, can it? So do appreciate that, and hopefully some of them can get caught up on some rest for that. And then again, just to echo kind of what I shared at the beginning of the meeting, really do appreciate so much community input at our first meeting there last week on the Woodlawn expansion project. So that's the end of my report. With that, we're going to move on to our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to let the council know that the Attorney General issued an opinion on signage. From time to time, the Attorney General will issue opinions. That's a written interpretation of existing law. So you may remember we passed a sign ordinance that kind of conflicted with Wichita's sign ordinance and some other sign ordinances, but matched what the state statute was, which was that cities could not regulate signs within the public right-of-way within 45 days of an election. And there was some debate on whether or not that was constitutional. Well, the Attorney General weighed in on it, and I had a chance to review that opinion. And basically, they sided with the cities like Bel Aire, who have chosen not to regulate signs in the right-of-way. They do, the Attorney General opined that the current law is allowing signs in the right-of-way doesn't restrict speech. Therefore, it complies with Supreme Court law. It complies with the constitutional right of free speech by actually limiting cities' ability to impede on that speech, not based on the content or based on some other matter. It's solely framed in the boundaries of whether it's political speech or not. So with that, I mean, it's the Attorney General's opinion of existing law. We don't see any cases coming down, but I wanted council to know that right for now, we're fine. There may be a lawsuit or something that kind of moves us further away from what is considered best practices in law, but for now, our interpretation stands with support. That's all I have.
Just a clarification, as I understand it, an Attorney General's opinion like this has the full weight of law unless it's overturned by a court or legislature. Is that correct?
It depends.
Okay.
It does bolster our ability to say that we believed our interpretation and our enforcement of existing law was reasonable because we relied on the Attorney General's opinion, which is kind of a slight rub rather than a court's ruling, which we are legally violating if we don't follow. So it's close to that line. I think for our purposes, we like it to have the weight of law. So yeah.
Now we'll continue with reports and move on to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items. I'm proud to announce that the city was awarded Tree City USA designation again. This is our 23rd year for that, so I want to thank the Tree Board. They have a lot to do with that, and then of course our Parks Department. The other thing I wanted to notice, and I've mentioned and I've heard it on the radio, but it does affect a lot of our citizens, I think, is the 45th and Hillside intersection closed yesterday on the south and east sides for the railroad signal installation, and it's supposed to be closed or reopened on May 3rd. That's depending on construction and weather and things like that. So anyway, hopefully our citizens are aware of that, but if they haven't heard it on the radio or in the news, that's what's happening. And that may impact all of our traffic and such because of the road being closed. So thank you, man.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone representing our committees and wants to report tonight? Okay. For that, we're going to move on to ordinances, resolutions, and final actions. And the first thing to come before council this evening is approving the Woodlawn Expansion Survey to be mailed to registered voters. This is, the Woodlawn expansion, like I mentioned Tuesday evening, is something we've been talking about almost for 2 decades here. And excited to come here. The survey before us has 14 questions in it. This isn't a matter of do you want 3 or 5 lanes, yes or no. I mean, there's a lot that comes into it. This project is going to have a significant improvement, community improvement, regardless of which way we go. I think benefit to our community for years, decades to come, actually. And part of the contract that we have with MKEC for this project was to complete the survey that we'll use to gather input from the citizens. I know at our last workshop we talked about if we're going to do a online survey, and Councilmember Benaj brought up an idea about sending it to registered voters, which that's a good way to get to specific folks that are engaged as well. So that's what we're talking about here tonight. The staff, as well as MKC, came up with these 14 questions, along with all the different possibilities, the designs that you saw, and the design concepts are available online as well. So if you weren't able to attend on Tuesday or haven't seen it yet, I would strongly encourage you to take a look at that. But this is the opportunity now for our council to make any suggested changes before we mail this out to registered voters. So my first question is, do any of the council members do you have some changes you want to see? And if so, I think maybe the best thing might be that we just kind of go through each question. For that, is that agreeable, or does anybody have specific questions that they specifically want to talk about?
I think that's fine. The cover sheet that came with it, and my printer is running out of ink, so apologize for odd colors on it. But it has an error in it, in that the cost for the 3-lane traffic signal and the roundabout are transposed. Those costs are backwards in what it should be.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Which is why this is before us this evening.
And if you read the survey, it's the other way. It says right.
Okay. So we got the first thing on the cover page there. I'm going to go through. So you got.
There's one additional thing I'd like to suggest about that.
Okay, hold on a second.
Same subject. Same issue. Same subject. Okay.
Okay.
I would like to suggest that we give that a 3-digit rounding because of the odd even pricing that you know from marketing. Why do things sell at $3.95 when it's $4? Okay, there's a reason. There's psychology there, and I want to be as transparent and as clear with the public about this survey as you can. And so I would suggest, like the first one, show it that using Ted's numbers is 2.59. The second one is 2.76. The third is 3.89, and the fourth is 3.99, which is using Ted's numbers. Just a suggestion. And same way in the survey. I think it's question 6 is in the survey. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Councilor Smith,
Mr. Mayor, before we get too far in there, I just wondered if it might be worth discussing a little bit exactly what our purpose in sending the survey out is, so that we can make sure we're all on the same page about what we're really trying to achieve through sending out the survey, so that as we go through the questions, we can evaluate whether the questions are going to help us achieve those objectives or not. And so I'll just share my opinion of what I'd like to get out of the survey, and you guys can tell me if that's consistent or not. I think my opinion is we need to send out this survey to get additional information from the public on their preferences regarding the 3-lane versus the 5-lane option, and the roundabout versus the traffic signal option, provided the cost information that we have at our disposal. And so the information that we're really trying to gather from the public is the public's preferences on these options based on their usage of the intersection. And that's really the sole objective that I have in getting information out of this survey.
Mm-hmm. And I would agree. I think that was, the plan along. I appreciate you sharing that. That's good to point out that, this is a huge project that we certainly want to make sure our citizens feel engaged and empowered here to share your opinions, and then take all of that along with recommendations from the engineer, and we'll need to look at how we're going to pay for whatever it is we decide, because there are pros and cons, in my opinion, to every single one of these options here. Remember Tuesday night it was actually Councilmember Elsoff who gave the little nudge to do it, and I think it's a fun idea. No, it scared my wife when I said I was going rogue. But just taking that quick little survey, how you saw, and again, non-scientific, a small room. Obviously, everyone there is specifically for that event. But there wasn't one question I asked that didn't have at least a handful of questions, for or against, even just that small little group right there. So there are going to be a lot of different opinions here, and there's a lot of things to think about with this 3-lane versus 5 lanes in Woodlawn. And again, this is 245th Street. Beyond 45th, it's 2 lanes. This is a big project, and we certainly want to have citizens' input on that. But going through the survey, obviously, question number 1, do you think it's a gateway to the city? I'm perfectly fine with that question. I like that. I think that's actually an important question, too, to know for that.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I guess one thing that I want to share is just when I look at this survey, I think it's too long. Some of that has to do with the format that it's in, but just personal opinion, personal biases. If somebody sends me a survey in the mail and it's physically laid out on 5 pages, I'm going to look at that, and I'm probably going to be a lot less likely to fill it out than if it's a 1-page survey or maybe a front and back survey at the maximum. So I'd encourage maybe the council to consider how we can be more concise in getting the information that we need in order to make this decision on 3-lane versus 5-lane, so that 1, we may be more likely to get people to fill the survey out, and 2, so that we can be respectful of everyone's time in their filling out of this survey and make sure we're only asking questions that we need to.
And that was one thing, actually, looking through that too, with the, we've got the box that says why after almost half the questions. Yeah. Could we maybe get rid of that box and have, just one box at the end where people could write their comments? And I think that might, okay.
Might do some of that.
Yeah.
Along Councilmember Smith's suggestion about the survey and its purpose, and I agree with what you say. My purpose in presenting this concept of sending it to registered voters is so that we would have an assurance of the integrity of the pool of respondents to the survey. The online is fine, and I'm fine with us doing that if we can make sure that we have the results posted as from the registered voters and the results posted from the online separate from each other and not intermingled, so that we know what the source of that result is. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, along those lines, it may also be possible if the registered voter database is how we're going to, draw or I guess get the list of people that will receive the survey, we may be able to put, people's voter registration ID number or some sort of unique PIN number on the survey, so that we don't actually have to have people fill out their full mailing information. And then if they wanted to complete the survey online, they could provide that identification number as well to still ensure the integrity of the survey results, while giving people an option to fill it out online instead of just by mail. So that'd be a suggestion that I'd have.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I still don't agree with just sending it to the registered voters. I think it should be sent to everybody that takes water and sewer from Bel Aire. Because there may be some older people that don't vote anymore, or younger ones that don't vote, but I think it should be sent to each head of the household, husband and wife, 18 and older, for the children if they want to get a copy of it, because you can vote when you're 18, correct? But I still think that you're going to leave a lot of people out if you just send it to registered voters, and I would assume that they would send it to everybody in Bel Aire, because even if those people rent, they still have a right to say what goes on in Bel Aire. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, again, and this isn't just going to homeowners. I mean, it's going to everyone who would be a registered voter. That, and actually in our city, we have, I think, one of the highest percentage of registered voters. What was it, over 5,000 people? And we only have 7,500 people in this. Yeah, and that's something I think on our last local election, we had the highest percentage voter turnout of anywhere in the state. For a local election. So I'm really proud of our citizen engagement with that. To echo what Councilmember Martin speaks about, if we miss out on some people, I actually spoke with a new resident. She actually bought, I can't remember which subdivision it was, but bought one of these, is building a home now. Her voter registration is still at her address in the city of Wichita. She wants to participate, and I gave her my card and said, by all means, email, and we can make the survey available to citizens if they want to get it, because there might be some other ones, and I think that's something else we want to advertise. The other part, too, going with registered voters, is that's an established database, and there's a company then that can send that out, and because that's a lot of staff time then, right, if we were to do.
Yeah, we talked to MKC, and they can do that for us. So yeah, we can, or we could do both an online and a voter survey, and like Mr. Benaj says, we could, you can see the results separately, and they may be the same, they may be different, but we could certainly do that too. So that way, anybody that lives in Bel Aire could take the online if they didn't receive the voter one.
Put it in order, Bill.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of comments. First of all, I agree with all the sentiments Councilman Smith has and concerns and expectations about why we're doing this survey. And I appreciate Councilman Benaj bringing up the registered voter as a means of a database of people that we can get that's not as easily corruptible as a generic survey online. We certainly need something, and that's a good idea to start with. And I think I also appreciate Councilwoman Martin's concern about those that aren't registered to vote that are still residents here. We definitely know one thing too, and that is whether we use the registered voter database or water bill recipients, what happens when we get a survey that doesn't have that information? What if they fill out a survey and they decided not to include their address, or if it's a paper mail-in thing, that could happen. If it's an online thing, presumably we could build some feature that you can't send it unless you fill out that information. And I think it's definitely upon us at this council to get that all worked out before we vote on it.
And the good thing to keep in mind too, that this is a survey, so nothing is binding.
Right.
That comes back too, So I certainly appreciate wanting the integrity of the survey, but kind of going back here and to reach everybody, I'm liking the idea that we send it to registered voters. We could put something in the water bill that says, did you know, your opinion matters, and send them to the link. Yeah, we may get a couple of people who do one online and do a paper one. That's just, but again, this isn't binding. This isn't, an election, and
Mr. Mayor,
I want to have those opinions shared in here. Yeah.
So If MKC is going to do this with the voter registration, it's got all the addresses anyway. Can't we just do a cross-reference on the properties of Bel Aire and see which ones are not on that, and just make sure that those are covered as well?
Yeah, we had talked about as part of the online survey is requiring address or as Mr. Smith had said, a specific number or something, so that we can ensure that they do live. It's a Bel Aire address.
Yeah, because if we've got over 5,000 registered voters and only 7,500 people, there can't be that many houses that would be missed from it. That we should be able to just supplement that with, just an additional mailing that's not from that register, right? Just from, like I said, cross-reference our properties to that. I mean, my household has 4 registered voters, so I would get 4 letters to my household. But I think that if we just cross-reference the two, we could come up with a list of who's not getting covered, and then I don't know, what is it, 100 homes maybe? I mean, then just send the survey out to those homes as well.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Just to make sure that not only the voters, but also the homeowners or the occupants of the home are all included.
All right, so hearing that we definitely want to make sure that we expand this beyond just the registered voter list. That sounds like there's a couple of suggestions of ways we can definitely try to do that. Getting back to the survey, again, with the 14 questions, we came up with the idea of removing a lot of the narrative boxes, still allowing for some narrative, but to shorten it up for that. Were there any suggestions, questions for any of the specific questions on here that any of you guys have?
Yes.
For this. Okay.
Yes.
So let's start.
Right. One, Mr. Mayor, thank you. One thing is I think the first question should be the question about 3-lane, 5-lane. I forget what number that is.
I think it's 6.
Question 6. Yeah. I think that needs to be the star of the survey. And yeah, I agree with Councilman Smith's sentiment that it was too long. That was my impression when I was looking through it. I was like, this is a lot of questions. I think we should probably cut it in half. I don't know, maybe to 2 pages. I see the value in a lot of the questions that are there. They certainly all have some value, but I particularly think we should prioritize the questions that have the priorities from, what was it, high, most desired to least desired. Those types of questions I thought were really valuable. And the question 6 about the options. Beyond that, the kind of the yes/no questions, I didn't think they were quite as valuable for what we're looking for. And I also agree that we shouldn't have multiple open text boxes, just one at the end for general comments or whatever. I think that's the way to go there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Councilman Smith, let's go down the line here.
Sure. Yeah, so on question number 1, I was actually more of the opinion that question probably wouldn't help me in the understanding of whether people preferred a 3-lane versus a 5-lane or a traffic signal versus a roundabout, and so I wasn't necessarily in favor of that question.
Okay.
Also, the text boxes, I think the general comments section at the end is a great idea, and that's what I had in mind as well. And then on question 13, I share the same sentiment as with question number 1.
I'm sorry, which question?
Question 13.
13, sorry.
It does not necessarily going to help me make a decision there. And then there's one other one. On questions 3 and 4, I might propose that we consolidate that into a single question that's just, please select your preferred intersection style, and if the options are roundabout or traffic signal, instead of making that 2 separate yes/no questions. Those are my main comments.
So so here a lot for shortening it. I would actually, and I actually have a question I want to add, but going along hearing this, I'm in agreement hearing what we're doing with shortening it, that question number 1 could probably be taken out if need be. I would even maybe suggest question number 2, as far as which side. The engineer can kind of, and they're telling us that. And what were the other 2 I had? Yeah, especially going along with kind of what we're talking about, does this help us decide if we want a 3-lane or 5-lane? Also, I agree with you on question 13, but also I might suggest question number 8, if that's one that is needed in there for this. If we're trying to shorten it and still get the results that we want. So those would be my suggestions: 1, 2, 8, and 13. And then I'll put this out here for discussion because, again, going back to Tuesday night when I asked that the question, I thought it was interesting, 3 or 5 lane, and then said what about if we have to raise your taxes to keep it, and how many hands stayed up versus how many came down? Can we put something in here that indicates, are you willing to see your mill levy increase for this? None of us up here are in favor of a mill increase, I can tell you that right now, but I think that's something we need to ask our citizens. They want this, and we need to look at options. It might be interesting to see how many are for a certain something, but then all of a sudden, if it comes to a mill increase, if they're still for or against something. I'm not quite sure how you would word that.
Yeah,
there's a cost of all 4 options, so
yeah.
I don't want it to be labeled as just one. Maybe, if you like option, I'm going to throw this out there, like on a, question, number 6, where it said, I'm just reading the first one, so this is not the mayor's opinion here, okay? 3 lanes, 1 lane each direction with a continuous center turn lane and roundabout at 45th Woodlawn, estimated cost $2.8 million. Could we add maybe a column, a 5th column, willing to, increase, I don't know, for each one? I don't know how you'd word that in there, but I think that's important to know too, because just my 2 cents. Councilmember Martin, we're going to move on here.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Councilmember Benaj?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My suggestion and I agree with Councilmember Smith that number 1 wasn't really a question. I think it could be eliminated. Number 2, there was a question the engineers did raise about which side this 10-foot bike path should be on. So they want our direction on that.
Okay.
So I was okay with that question. I did speak with some citizens. They said, well, why don't we put a 10-foot on both sides? And that way bicyclists could make those options. But I don't know how much money you're talking about. I imagine it's a lot more money, but I don't know. I just don't have a feel for that. So anyway, that was just an option on 2 to add that 3rd boxes, both sides with 10-foot path. I think questions 3 and 4 are redundant to 6. I think they both could be eliminated instead of combined. I agree that they could be combined as well, but I think they're redundant to 6. So I don't see where that helps us get to what we want. No. Question 5 I was okay with because I think that's input the engineers need from us. On question 6, I would ask that we consider another option here is that a citizen says they don't like any of these options, and then they can put their comments in the comment box in the back as what they think.
You mean just leave it as is type?
Yeah, or some other option. One of the problems that you get with these surveys is people get really frustrated with them because they say, well, I don't like any of them. I can't answer that question. I get frustrated with questions like that. So I just wonder if we can't put that in there and give them that 5th option to say, hey, I don't like these suggestions. I don't expect that we'll get a lot of that kind of response to that, but I think it should be there for the folks so they feel they're getting their honest opinion put out there. And if we have an overwhelming number of them, well, that'll tell us something too. Okay. Number 8, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that I don't think that was a good question for us. I think it should be left out. I think 10 and 11 were good for the engineers' input, and 13, I don't know what that does for us either. So that's my comments there. And I don't know if we need to do this, but maybe Jackie has an opinion about this, but should this say it's non-binding?
It doesn't need to, but it can. You can just clarify.
I just wonder if we should say it's non-binding, just so that folks will know. Well, we voted. Well, this isn't an official vote.
Right.
And if it's closed, if we get closed, we're going to have to make our own decision about it based upon what we think is the sentiment. And I don't know. I don't have a feel for that. That's why I want this survey, because I want to know what the voters think here. Okay.
I would say, I would imagine we could probably go down the line here. Maybe, well, there's only 4 questions, but I bet we could get close to 4 different opinions among the 6 of us here. So, Councilmember Hodge, do you have any suggestions here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a problem with the length of it. I had a problem with the relevance. I think most of that has been taken care of, which actually takes care of the length anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think taking out the irrelevant questions, just, it helps it. I mean, it's a multiple choice question.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody as a kid loved multiple choice tests because it was just faster.
Got a 50-50 shot of getting them right.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have a problem with that, but yeah, taking out the irrelevance is a good thing.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, one other comment, and you made a suggestion about a question on the mill levy increase, and I understand that. I did a quick look at what our mill levy is versus Wichita, and we're about 50% higher, our mill levy today. So I'm not a big fan of that, and usually when you increase taxes, you decrease interest and marketability of the city, and I'm not sure that's good for us to do. I don't think it would. I think if it did anything, it would lessen our ability for growth, because people would look at that and say, wow, I can get this other over here, and the more we can keep our mill levies down, the better off we are, I think.
I think we're all in agreement on that. Mine was simply a question, this citizens, if they say we want this and we're willing to pay more for it, that's something, because you said it yourself, this survey is, we have to look at the budget. We have to look at how we're going to pay for this now and years down the road. We need to, if the overwhelming majority is one that is going to be tough to pay for, that has to be an option. Then at that point, we need to decide if that's something we want to do or not. I absolutely am not suggesting, advocating, asking for. I want to be perfectly clear on that. Mine was, I just want to see, if citizens tell us they're willing, that may make it a bit easier if we are forced to look at that option up here. That's all I was saying for that, because it is easy to say, oh yeah, I want this. Oh, I'm willing to pay for it. Yeah, I mean, heck, I want a Ferrari, but but yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think that's why it's really important that we included the cost numbers in question 6, so that people understand the difference in the cost between the 3-lane and the 5-lane. It's roughly, $1.3 plus million of difference between the 3-lane and the 5-lane, or the options there, and so that's a pretty significant cost difference. And whether we pay for it through a mill levy increase, which I'm not at all in favor of, or just through our traditional taxes, it's still money that we as citizens are still paying for, and so it's important to understand what that costs, because every dollar counts, and that's hard-earned money that we're all paying in our taxes for these types of projects. So my only other comment on the survey was question number 9. Maybe also is one that we should consider removing. I don't recall if anyone else brought that up, but I think the asking about frustrations on Woodlawn will likely get that through the general comments.
Yeah, I missed that.
We probably don't need a specific question asking about that.
Yeah, we're opening up another thing. Okay, take that. Okay. Well, I appreciate good discussion here on this. Obviously, we're going to have some discussion on what to do when we get the results back from here, and these are some decisions that the governing body, we're going to need to make this decision, coming up this summer, because construction is going to start pretty soon, and we should all look forward to, regardless of which of those 4 options we go with, or 5th, if we add that one, I think it's going to be much improved, and I'm looking forward to seeing this project begin on that. So,
Mr. Mayor, I do think there's some urgency on this. Does the engineers need an answer sometime in April? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So
yep.
we really need to make a decision on this tonight on what we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, on getting the survey out.
Right.
Yeah. I don't want to decide if we're doing 3 or 5. That's what I'm saying. We're going to have a lot of discussion about that.
Right.
No. Yeah. No. I want. Yeah. Let's get the survey out. That's going to be my next question. Was when I think if you can offer this feedback to MKC and we can get the survey out.
Yeah. So I took all the notes, I think, and I'm sure Ann was taking notes, and so we'll take your comments and revise this. Obviously, it'll go down to just a few questions, and then we'll send that out. So really, if you're comfortable with everyone's comments, because we made notes on those, approving it as amended, then we can get that finished up, and we'd like to actually get it out this week yet.
Perfect.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I need clarification because I have some disagreement with some of the suggestions that I don't think we've hashed it out entirely yet. So with regards to adding the point about having a tax increase, I don't agree that should be included on the survey. That's not something that we're going to be deciding with. I mean, this gets to the purpose of this survey, right? I don't think that is going to address what we're going to be voting on in terms of the decision between 3 and 5 lane and traffic intersection. I don't think that's going to enter into that future discussion. And I also don't think we ought to create, it's escaping me. I'm sorry, Councilman Benaj, what was your suggestion again?
Regarding the mill levy?
No.
Then none of the above type?
Oh, yeah, that's it. None of the above. Right. I don't think none of the above, or your 5th option you suggested, I don't think we should include that because, again, we're not considering the none of the above option. We're going to be voting on one of those 4 options. One of those 4 options is happening, right? This body is going to make a decision, that this train is going down the road. I don't see us putting the brakes and not going with one of those 4. I don't think it gives us any value to add a 5th question or a 5th option, which is do nothing, which is what that is. I don't.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, yeah. I agree with you, but from a perspective of a person filling out a survey, I really don't like it when I have not that 5th option to say, hey, I don't agree with this stuff, and I want to say differently, but. It's not like this is in concrete or anything. I'm flexible, but that's kind of the reason I was pointing at from the perspective of a person completing the survey.
Right. I guess my concern is we have a purpose here, and I think that doesn't speak to our purpose, and that's the point of clarifying. But I appreciate the perspective you're saying, and I share your idea of when you get a survey in there, but. This survey is being tailored to what we need to make a decision, and I don't think that helps. That's, I don't know if we each need to speak on those.
Well, you bring up the, I'm the one who suggested asking people if they're willing, to pay more for it, because I think that absolutely is something we need to know. We're not suggesting it up here, but I think the answer may surprise us.
Mr. Mayor, my only comment to that is, the question on whether you as an individual are willing to pay more may not actually be enough to. I guess what I'm trying to say is there are broader implications, as Councilmember Benaj pointed out, to, like a mill levy increase and the effect that that would have on, potentially our ability to sell land in the Commerce Park and the Industrial Park and, the residential lots that we have in the future. I fully connect with the comments regarding, as taxes go up, our ability to market and sell our land and grow our city is going to go down. And so a mill levy increase may or may not actually help us fund a project like this, because there might be additional income from an individual taxpayer, but our collective income as a city may actually go down due to the lack of growth that we have over time. And so I think there's a lot of complexity that would have to be factored into a discussion even about raising the mill levy to fund this type of project. And so I think that complexity maybe can't be accurately captured in one question on the survey.
Because, again, I want to point out, I'm not advocating for one, but to find out, because I think that there is some type, you're putting the onus then on, because it is easy when we say, would you, well, heck yeah, I want that. Well, are you willing to take a pay cut to get that? Are you willing to, well, then my decision may be a little different. That was my thought on putting it out there. Not, again, and not bringing it up that we want to have a tax increase. But I think, again, I'm trying to think of an example I can use. Like I said, in my own personal life with that. If it's different. Yeah, I can say I want. Okay, are you willing to give up? Are you willing to get? Well, then my answer may change a little. That was my thought with adding that question.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same opinion of not putting it on there. I think that seeing what the answers are first. We may be overwhelmed by the 3-lane. We may be overwhelmed by the 5-lane. But until we know and get a little better feel of how everybody else feels, that's kind of a question down the road. And then we can go, okay, I understand, and if it's super close, then you can go, okay, I understand that, half want this, but this would have to happen to do this. I think, we're kind of, if we put that question in there, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and if we were to include a question like that, I almost think we need to put in another kind of full-page informational sheet, kind of explaining some of the things around that, much like we would, for the rest of the survey. It's a very complex issue. Okay,
and that's why we're having this discussion. I appreciate your opinions on that. I mean, that was a suggestion that I had, but overwhelming, and I get all these different viewpoints on that, and I appreciate it. So yeah, we can. I'm hearing the consensus here to just leave that off then.
Mr. Mayor, could I just kind of walk through the survey and make my notes, and then you guys can say yes or no if I heard everything correctly. So number one, do you consider Woodlawn the gateway? That's a question that we don't need to include. We'll take that one out. When completing the project for the sidewalk and the walking path, leave that in on east or west side. The citizens can decide which one they think, but we'll take out the Y box. Mm-hmm. They can add additional comments. On number 3 and number 4, do you prefer the inner roundabout or the signalized intersection? We'll take both of those out, because they should, when they choose their, whether they want a 3-lane with the intersection or a 3-lane with a roundabout, they'll make that decision there. Or a 5-lane with a roundabout. So they're actually making that decision when they're choosing the side of the road. Because, we could continue with the flashing lights or something like that if people didn't think it was important. But let's see. And then number 6, which was the ranking of those, we're going to move that to the top. So that would be the first question. And then the what design contribute to a great street?
Hold on, Mr. Manager.
Yes.
Just getting back to question 6 real quick to follow up with Councilman Benaj's suggestion on the cover sheet. Do we want to change the decimal place rounding to 2 decimals on that as well?
Yep, that's fine. We can do that. And I guess the other question is, do we want to add in there none of these? Because that was something that Councilmember Benaj mentioned as well. So I'm seeing the majority saying no, so we'll add the 2.8 numbers, and then we'll leave out the, they'll have to pick one of those. Number 7 is design elements that most contribute to a great street, rank in importance. I think there was a thought that we could take that out, or unless you wanted to keep that in, if we're trying to, because really number 8, what values make to a great street.
Yeah, because all 4 of those options have number 7. It's going to have improved drainage. It's going to have beautification. It's going to
Eliminate 7, keep 8.
I'm thinking we can eliminate both.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Both. Get rid of both.
Okay.
Sure.
And then we'll move on to 9. What's the biggest frustrations? We're taking that out because we probably have a list of those.
Like we know all already.
Yeah. So number 10, how important is street beautification? I know there was a comment to take that out, but from the engineering standpoint, I think it would be good to have in there so that we would know whether the citizens like the idea of trees. And, as Jason Gish had talked about, do we want just concrete turn lanes with islands that are concrete, or do the citizens, would they like some trees or some shrubs or something, some beautification? That'd be good to know as we're designing the islands and stuff. So, any comments? Anybody opposed to leaving that in?
No, I think that's important.
I
I
think
think
it should be left
10 and
in.
11 are both important. I mean,
I agree.
I might say that I think it's important. I'm just questioning whether the way those questions are designed, if that actually helps us understand what is important to people, because there's quite a list of things that are listed there, and we may not be able to understand, for example, the difference in, including the trees versus the, the landscaping, or the lighting versus the, the benches. And are we actually going to be able to make, my question is if we're going to actually be able to make decisions based on that information.
if I may, I think
this
this takes us down the path later, though. I think when on the design phase, and I mean because if everybody says this stuff is not important, the design phase is pretty plain and simple. Then if they say it is important, that's when I think we can kind of go down a kind of path and kind of figure out exactly what it is that's important. Yeah, I think for an overall general feel of what they I think it's a good question for a first survey.
And the bottom line comes down to, again, what I think a number of people have asked here is, what is the purpose of this? And the most important is question number 6, which is now question number 1. So having those in there.
So I guess from my perspective, those two questions probably don't help us get an answer to that specific question. I'm not saying that it's not important or that we shouldn't get public input on that, because I think even at the public meeting that we had last week, we heard an overwhelming support for landscaping and design elements, and so there's no question in my mind that there will be a lot of response to that and a lot of support for it.
And we're going to get 100 different designs.
Then we're going to need input on what are the details that are most important, and how much should the city spend on those details. And I'm just wondering if we can actually get enough information out of this survey to make a meaningful difference in that decision-making process or not.
Yeah, I don't know that we can, and I like the idea of just, again, if we know what it is, and then Casey comes back, okay, here's option A, here's option B, and we here make that decision for that, right? Because it's going to have some design.
Right.
So.
Yep. Do you have something you wanted to share?
I was just thinking if we could keep questions 7 and 8 and get rid of 9 and 10. The 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 are somewhat similar in that they deal with the different aesthetic aspects of the project. But 7 and 8 would give us a little bit more detail to allow the designers to move forward with those aesthetic aspects of the project. I think it would get to kind of where some of where you guys have been wanting to go. get that information that's not only going to help you make the decision 3-5 signal roundabout, but it's also going to give the designers the information that they need to make sure it's a product that the city can be proud of.
Okay. I appreciate your suggestion, and that's a good suggestion to have, to get a point of view on that.
So is everybody comfortable? We'll take out 10 and 11, but we'll keep in 7 and 8.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
And then, okay, so then we've got 12 drainage issues. Again, that's something important for staff to know, because we think that some of the stormwater improvements along Woodlawn will help some of the people. We need to know who it is having problems, so that if it doesn't, then that's something that Ann will need to know as we look at Trib 7 and some future street improvements over there. So if council's okay with leaving that in, it would be helpful for us.
I think it should.
I think that's a good question. I'm just wondering if it should be more of a yes or no question on, are you having issues with your drainage? And if so, please explain in the comments. That way we've got a concrete yes or no metric for the survey results.
Yep.
And we can easily identify the entries that maybe we need to have a more detailed conversation with those residents.
Okay.
Yep. If we do that, I think we need to restrict it to Woodlawn, because I can tell you, I can answer the survey and say, yeah, I got some drainage issues.
Yep.
And I don't live along Woodlawn. I mean, I use it all the time, but I don't live along.
And it does say if you live near Woodlawn.
Well, I understand, but I think they were changing the question, so I just want to make sure we kept it.
Keep that.
Keep
that
it
component.
to that focus.
Okay. And then 13, again, that's very helpful for us to know where people are getting their information. It was great to hear at the workshop or the open house that people were watching the presentation on YouTube and going to our website. So that's important as we market where people are getting their information. So that's really, really important for us. And then the last, number 14, will be the place for people to give their additional feedback. So
I would only add, if we're going to keep number 13, I get that from, obviously, as a marketing guy, I know you for the research for that. City of Bel Aire social media, do we even want to drill down further, Facebook or YouTube or Twitter?
Let them put it in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, give an option, because if we're going to do this, to find out, that would be good to know. Yep. If we're getting some measurable results on
Is that, although I understand there's a difference between Twitter and Facebook, but is that duplicate to City of Bel Aire social media?
Yeah, it's just a specific social media
More
channels.
specific.
Yeah.
yeah, so we could nail it down.
Yeah.
Like a subset. A subset.
I would think
Just a line to the side and
Yeah, we just have to circle which one
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
The question also assumes that this isn't the first time people are hearing about the project, which may not always be the case.
Sure there'll be some that won't have it.
Yeah, I was thinking if we're going to go and do that, let's do it.
I personally would probably just take that question out, but maybe I'm the only one there.
About how you learned about the project.
Yeah, how valuable is that for...
If we're doing this, I think it's good to know how we're reaching our...
Again, it's not related to this project. It's just that if we're going to send this out, it's nice for us to know that everybody's, the majority of people are watching or gets their information from Facebook. So we make sure that we're really targeting Facebook, and we have no one that's on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So, okay, we don't need to spend a lot of time, because, you can spend a lot of time on all the different social media aspects with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that. And if we know that there's one or two media outlets that everybody's using, then we can focus on those and not spend so much time on Instagram or whatever.
And it's a debate that we constantly have in the office of how do we get information out to our citizens. And especially since we're sending it out to all registered voters, it's something that's very valuable for staff to have that knowledge, because we always get accused of, well, you didn't let me know, or you didn't let that person know. So this way we can find out how people are getting their information, making sure that we're tailoring our efforts.
maybe the question can be reworded so that it's not specific to this project and it's just a question on how do you prefer to receive information from the city about
How do you
projects?
learn about Bel Aire events?
Because I may have heard about this project from Facebook, and I may have also heard about it from the news when they did a story on it, and I may have also read about it in the Bel Aire Breeze, and I may not remember which one I heard about it first. And the question may make me wonder: are you trying to understand where did I hear about it first, or where would I prefer to hear about it? And so I think if we can just maybe drill into what we're really trying to get at there is how would people prefer to be communicated with?
Yeah, that's good.
Matter of fact, the Breeze isn't even listed on here.
Yeah.
I have to miss that.
Okay. Alrighty, lots of great discussion on this, and I can't wait to get the results back and for us to make our decision and move forward. So at this point, I will need to entertain a motion for action on this.
Mr. Mayor, a motion that we approve the Woodlawn Expansion Survey as amended.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You said that'll go out by the end of this week?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, item
By the way,
B.
good job. I like the layout. I think it dresses it up in a way I couldn't have done.
And it's also good to have a third party doing this too, so
Yeah.
for integrity on that. So, okay, item B is the Public Works skid steer replacement. I was surprised to learn this is a 1998 that we are still using, and it loses power a lot when you go out, which pretty much defeats the purpose of a skid steer. It seems to me it's outdated and it's going to need some major repairs pretty soon. I do want to point out that our 2019 Capital Equipment Fund does contain $40,000 for a replacement skid steer, so I know this is something we had anticipated needing to replace. You can see that we received bids from White Star Foley and Murphy, Foley Equipment and Murphy Tractor in there with trade-in, so we are trading it in. White Star came in at the lowest bid, $30,498.10, and Ann is here. To answer any questions on that. My first question is always a little leery when one bid is so much less than another. I mean, our $40,000 was our estimate. We got two in that range, then one at the $30,000.
The reason that White Star is so low is because they have the state contract on this piece of equipment. And when you have a state contract, it is typically a significant cut in price. And so that's why that one is so low. It is a very similar piece of equipment to the other two that I have presented before you, but the other two did not have the state contract for this piece of equipment.
I have a question. What kind of warranty are they offering on this equipment?
I do not have that information. I believe it is the standard warranty that is offered through that state contract, but I could certainly find that information for you and get back tomorrow.
I believe there was a 2-year, 2,000-hour warranty for the first two, the White Star and the Foley. Off the top of my head, I don't remember if the Murphy had the same, but it looked like it was a standard type.
And 2,000 hours, which if we look at the number of hours used on the old one, you're not going to use those hours. It'll be 2 years.
Yeah.
Unless she's got plans.
We have plans, but it's not 2,000. It's not we're not a contractor who uses it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out one other thing too. You mentioned that there was a trade-in on the White Star, and it didn't look like there was a trade-in. So this is for the current Bobcat that we have. The trade-in value on the White Star contract was $6,500. So if you add $6,500 to that $30,498, that's what the straight-up bid for the new skid steer would be. The Foley and Murphy contracts did not appear to have the trade-in. Is that correct, Ann? Trade-in didn't exist for them?
These bids were sent out kind of at different times, and we were not quite sure what we were doing with the Bobcat at that time.
Okay.
Whether we were going to keep it, whether we were going to let the rec center use it or what, so it may not have been included in that.
Okay,
for
I just
this
wanted
purpose.
to make that clear so that we were all up to speed together on that. And another thing I'd point out is that the White Star bid was for a Bobcat skid steer, which is similar in type and class to what we currently have, whereas the Foley equipment, I believe, was a Cat skid steer. Again, same class, just different manufacturer. And the or I might have that wrong. Maybe that was a
Yes.
There was a John Deere, a Cat, and a Bobcat.
Yes, Murphy had the John Deere, Foley had the Cat,
Okay.
and then White Star had the Bobcat.
Okay, so just so we're clear, these are 3 different bids for 3 different, technically different models, but the same type of skid steer equipment. And I guess I'll just say, after looking through everything, I think we should go with the White Star bid. It looked like the best deal.
I have one other question. What kind of delivery time are they looking at on this?
I thought I had that in there. I'm sorry, I don't have that information with me.
I just didn't want to wait until the fall.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't believe 60 to 90 days. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
We're willing to work within that time frame.
And you're perfectly comfortable with the one from White Star?
Yes, we currently have a Bobcat. We're very familiar with it. All of our attachments will work on any of the 3 pieces of equipment, but Bobcat is very well known for their durability.
And we got 20 years out of that one, and we're getting $6,000 in trade-in from that. So that says something to me.
And a broken foot.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
did we get an estimate for repairing the one that we have? Do we have any idea what it costs to kind of bring our current one up to good condition?
It's not so much. It's not so much kind of repairing. It's just the overall wear and tear on the machine has caused it to kind of slowly lose power. It's not my understanding that there's really any one thing that we can do to bring it back up to the full power. And the model that we have sourced out is actually a slightly more powerful machine than what we have.
Okay.
At full power.
At full power, yes. Brand new for probably the first 5 to 10 years. And then after that.
And again, we have $40,000 budgeted, and looks like we can get one for $30,500 basically.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the White Star bid from at a cost of $30,498.10 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Now, it does say the manager to sign. Is that okay, though, for motion?
Oh, it says manager. Oh,
Yeah.
I misread that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can sign it.
To the manager.
I can sign it, no problem. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, next we have 3 appointments. These are, spoken about this before, about how proud I am of our number of volunteers and number of citizens willing to serve. And we've heard here recently, reports from some of these committees. They have some long meetings and go over some tough issues and bring those to us. And we are blessed with a great group, and I certainly appreciate all of them. Item C and D are for our tree board. And see Gary is here, and appreciate all his help always running the tree board. And again, 23 years in a row being in Tree City, USA, that doesn't happen by accident. So thank you for that. But we have 2 tree board positions that are open. Sylvia McCombs and Hilda Yops are the current members. They would like to be reappointed to the tree board, and see that Gary Northwall, who is the tree board president, is here, and he is recommending the reappointment.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to confirm the mayor's reappointment of Sylvia McCombs to the Bel Aire Tree Board.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Take a
Mr.
motion.
Mayor.
Yeah.
I motion to confirm the mayor's reappointment of Hildegard Yups to the Bel Aire Tree Board.
I'll second.
First and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. All right, item E is an appointment for the Utility Advisory Committee. We've had an opening for several months and really appreciate former council member Diane Wynn stepping up and volunteering for this. She's recently retired and would like to volunteer on a board. I think this is a perfect appointment for her. She's was involved at the very beginning with that brought recycling to Bel Aire, one of the very first communities in this region to do that. And I would certainly recommend that. And the president, remember several months ago we asked the president of these committees be the ones to kind of recommend the people for these boards, and the president of the Utility Advisory Committee, Art Tinbrink, is perfectly comfortable recommending former Councilmember Diane Wynn to this appointment.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I make a motion to confirm the mayor's appointment of Diane Wynn to the Bel Aire Utility Advisory Committee.
Second.
First and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, discussion and future issues. We do have a workshop scheduled for next week at 6:30. Are there agenda items specific that people would like to discuss specifically at this one?
Yes. So so far we have the home-based business that has been reviewed and is ready for council to consider. So that will be on the agenda. Of course, we heard from the exotic pet store owner was interested in maybe looking at a code change there. So Jackie will have some information on that to see if that's something you'd like us to work on. Jackie's also been working on cell tower regulations, and we've have had some interest in possibly a cell tower. So those the regulations council need to get adopted. And then the last thing which council had requested is Ann is working on her 2019 street repairs. So she'll be presenting that as well. So that's what we have so far.
Sounds like a full plate. Yeah. Is there any member of the council would like to add anything to that workshop agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward with that with the workshop a week from today. I have no need for an executive session.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
First and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 8:25. 8:26, excuse me.